Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, into our ongoing study in Matthew. We're back into Matthew now. We're going to look at Matthew 14:34 to 15:1. In the commentary, it'll be pages 572 to 579. And let's go to block 1 and take a look at the text. And when they were gone over, they came into the land of Gennesaret, and when the men of this place had knowledge of this, they sent out word and gathered and brought those to him all that were diseased, and who sought of him they might touch the hem of his garment for healing. And all those who did touch were made perfectly well. Then there came unto Jesus the scribes and the Pharisees from Jerusalem to accuse Christ of transgressing the tradition of the elders. Good old scribes and Pharisees refused to rejoice in the healing of others, but instead want to look at ways to critique Jesus. Let's go to the commentary in block 2. The crowd in Gennesaret already anticipates Eucharistic healing from the ministry of Christ. The anticipation. This region is located on the northwest shore of Lake Tiberias. It's southwest of Capernaum. Therefore, Jesus and his reputation as a healer, it was already well known. Now we read here of the impersonal means of healing, and as a cross-reference, we're led to Mark 3:10. He healed many as they pressed in upon to touch him. And then I think the best cross-reference is block 2, note 2, Eucharistic healing, further explained in Luke 6:19. I think Luke gives us even more. Here's the text. The multitude sought to touch him, for power went out of him. It's from ex erchomai, to issue out from Christ, and that which issued out of Christ is dunamis, the potential power of the Spirit. However, when individual healings are reported, Christ's compassion is mentioned, and the believer's faith is mentioned. This is the last substantial episode in the ministry of Christ in Galilee. After this, we start transitioning to the move to Jerusalem. So this is the final healing narrative in Galilee, and then we're going to start transitioning to the Jerusalem ministry. Let's go to block 3. Eucharistic healing is a scandalon, a stumbling block to the scribes and the Pharisees, and Jesus rebukes them firmly. This is very, very good. Jesus rebukes the scribes and the Pharisees. It's slightly ahead, but it's in Matthew 15:7 and 8. You hypocrites, Isaiah did prophesy correctly concerning you by saying in Isaiah 29:13, this people draws near to me with their mouth and their lips, but their heart is far from me. Jesus recognized that the scribes and the Pharisees put on a great show of being very spiritual, but it's all a show. It's all outward appearance. There's no inward transformation of the heart. As a passage spoke of the coming discipline and judgment that was going to come upon Judah. So we have this final healing narrative in the Galilee ministry. And after this, we're going to start transitioning to the trip to Jerusalem and the intense Jerusalem ministry. But before we go, we get another qualification of the narrative by the religious leadership that just refuses to have an attitude of compassion. They are all about a show of piety and not an inner transformed heart. It's all outward show. And we've already known about the Hosea 6:6 rebuke. I prefer mercy over sacrifice. I prefer those who seek knowledge of God over burnt offerings. Well, now we get another reference from Christ used in rebuke. It comes from Isaiah 29:13. This people draws near to me with their mouth and lips, but their heart is far from me. There you go. Christ uses the major prophet Isaiah to rebuke the scribes and the Pharisees, but in the past he also used the minor prophet Hosea to rebuke these same religious leaders. They just are not ministering with a heart of mercy and compassion. Instead, it's an outward show of piety. They're concerned about the visible outward compliance with the rules of the temple. That's what they're about. But Christ came with a ministry of mercy over sacrifice. Christ came with a ministry of compassion. Remember the previous episode, he had compassion on the crowd. Eucharistic healing always begins with compassion. It's mentioned here by R.T. France, Block 2, Note 2, D. When individual healings are reported, Christ's compassion is mentioned, and the believer's faith is mentioned. Eucharistic healing is a two-sided event of the compassion of Christ and the faith of the believer. It's a two-sided event. You can make a note of that. Eucharistic healing is a two-sided event of the compassion of Christ, encountering the faith of the believer. Christ came with a ministry of compassion, not conformance to a list of Sabbath rules. Christ came to minister and to heal according to a covenant of mercy, and in the Gospel of John, called a covenant of friendship. And Christ openly rebuked the religious leadership, the scribes and the Pharisees. In the past, he used Hosea 6:6, the minor prophet. In this passage, Christ rebukes using the major prophet, Isaiah, in 29:13. You're all outward show. You don't have a changed heart. You're all about outward show of piety. That's a very severe rebuke from Christ. Previously it was Hosea 6:6. I prefer mercy over sacrifice. I prefer those who seek knowledge of God over burnt offerings. again, it's the mercy, the ministry of mercy, that is a priority in the ministry of Christ. And so now we have another rebuke of the scribes and the Pharisees. You hypocrites. Isaiah precisely prophesied correctly concerning you in Isaiah 29:13, that you pretend to draw near to me in a open, all-show, visible way, but your heart is far from me. Your heart is far from me. And we know that from the previous lessons as well, that Matthew is always pointing this out, that Christ ushers in a ministry of compassion and mercy. He has compassion on the crowd. Even when he wanted to have time alone after the murder of John the Baptist, he allowed that time to be interrupted by the crowd that traveled around the shoreline in order to meet him on the eastern side of Lake Tiberias. And Christ, his first response was what? And Jesus had compassion on them. That's what we read. Jesus had compassion on them. They were begging for an encounter with Jesus, an encounter with a genuine, miraculous minister who was more than a prophet, because they said he teaches with authority. Just to close out here, we will reread block 2. The crowd in Gennesaret already anticipated Eucharistic healing from the ministry of Christ. The region is located on the northwest shore of Lake Tiberias. It was just southwest of Capernaum. Therefore, Jesus as a healer was something they had already known about. And for me, the key cross-reference, remember the first hermeneutical principle: whenever possible, interpret Scripture by using Scripture. And for me, it's all about block 2, note 2, Luke 6:19. The multitude sought to touch him, for power went out from him. It was evident to the crowd, it was evident to Matthew, that power was being issued out of Jesus. The verb is erchomai, to issue out from Christ. And what was being issued out from Christ was dunamis power. And dunamis power is always a power in movement, okay? Remember, the two words in the New Testament used for the power of the Spirit are dunamis, potential of Spirit, and energia, actuality of Spirit. The Spirit is always moving from dunamis to energia. Dunamis to energia. So this power being issued out from Christ is the potentiality of Spirit, dunamis, that is becoming energized as the energia of healing power. It's a movement of the power of the Spirit from dunamis to energia. Keep those two Greek words in your vocabulary, because they describe the activity of the Spirit throughout all of the New Testament. The Spirit is always moving from dunamis potential to energia actual. Right now in our history, behind surface reality, there is a kingdom of heaven moving all the time from dunamis potential of spirit to energia actualization of spirit. Always, always active, always, always moving, and always persuading us and asking us to participate in that realm of spirit. That's our task as believers. All right, it's a fairly brief lesson, but it gives us a good look at the final Eucharistic healing narrative in the Galilee ministry. And we'll be moving on now to transitioning to Jerusalem ministry. That wraps up 1434 to 15:1. And let's see, next time is what? Next time is 15:2 to 15:9. Thank you, my friends. That wraps up 1434 to 15:1.